storm started around midnight. Heavy rain pelted my windows and wind howled through the trees in my backyard. It was one of those nights where you could barely hear yourself think over all the noise. I was home alone for the weekend. My parents had gone out of town, leaving me with nothing to do but binge watch movies in the dark. I had all the lights off except for the glow of the TV. I was in the middle of a horror movie when I heard something that made my stomach drop. A knock at the back door. It wasn't the kind of soft tapping you'd expect from a lost neighbor looking for help. It was deliberate. 3 slow, heavy taps. I froze, staring toward the darkened kitchen where the back door was. No one ever used that entrance. The only way to get there was through my fenced backyard, and I hadn't heard the gate open. I turned the volume down and waited, listening. The storm raged outside, wind whipping against the house. I told myself it was just the wind, just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, my blood ran cold. Someone was definitely back there. I grabbed my phone and a kitchen knife, creeping toward the back door as quietly as I could. The house was old, and the floorboards creaked under my weight. I reached the glass pane of the door and held my breath. Lightning flashed. For half a second, I saw it. A tall, thin man standing in the darkness. Hood pulled over his head, his face completely obscured. He was motionless, staring right at me. Then the lightning faded, and he disappeared into the blackness. I stumbled back, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't know what to do. If he needed help, why wouldn't he call out? Why just stand there in the storm? That's when I saw it. The doorknob. It was twisting. I'd forgotten to lock the door. I lunged forward, slamming the deadbolt into place just as the door jerked violently. He was trying to open it. I ran to the front of the house, checking every lock and window. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type as I dialed 911. The operator asked if I could still see the man, but I was too afraid to look. When the police arrived 15 minutes later, the backyard was empty. No footprints in the mud, no sign anyone had been there. But I know what I saw, and I still think about what could have happened had I been 1 second slower to locking that door. It was pouring the rain when I was driving home from my late shift. The roads were practically flooding, and my wipers could barely keep up. I live in a rural area, meaning long stretches of wood and no streetlights. The only thing cutting through the darkness were my headlights. That's when I saw it. A car, completely still, on the side of the road. Its hazard lights blinking. It wasn't wrecked, just parked at an odd angle. Half on the road, half in the trees. I slowed down, debating whether I should check it out. Maybe someone had broken down. But as I got closer, I noticed something strange. The driver's door was wide open, and rain poured into the empty front seat. No one was inside. I pulled over and kept my engine running. "Hello?" I called out through my window. No answer. That's when I saw the footprints. Muddy, fresh footprints leading from the open car into the woods. They stopped about 10 feet from the tree line and then vanished, as if the person had just disappeared into thin air. A horrible feeling settled in my stomach. My guts screamed at me to leave. I shifted my car into drive, but right before I pulled away, something moved in the woods. A dark figure, standing completely still between the trees, barely visible in the rain. It was watching me. I slammed my foot on the gas and didn't stop until I got home. I still don't know what happened that night, who the car belonged to, or what was in those woods. The next morning, when I checked the news, there was no report of an abandoned vehicle, and on my way to work, the vehicle was gone. It was almost like it never even existed. I was house sitting for my aunt when the storm hit. Her place was old, one of those creaky, drafty houses with a huge basement that I wanted nothing to do with. Around 11 p.m., the power flickered. I was just about to turn in for the night when I heard a thud from below. I froze. It sounded like something big had fallen. I figured maybe a box tipped over, but then I heard it again. This time, though, it wasn't a thud. It was footsteps. Slow, heavy, moving up the basement stairs. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. My heart pounded as I crept toward the basement door. I held my breath and pressed my ear against the wood. Silence. Then, something slammed against the door from the other side. I stumbled back as the doorknob rattled violently, like someone or something was trying to get out. I ran out of the house and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the basement and found nothing. No signs of forced entry. But I know what I heard. I was staying at my parents' old lake house for the weekend, hoping for some peace and quiet. The house was remote, sitting right on the edge of the woods with a long gravel driveway leading down to the water. I used to love coming here as a kid, but something about being there alone as an adult made it feel off. The house was old, the wood creaky, and whenever the wind blew, it sounded like the whole place was breathing. That first night, the storm rolled in fast. The wind howled against the walls, rain lashed against the windows, and the power flickered several times before finally going out completely. I sighed, grabbed my flashlight, and sat by the window, watching the storm over the lake. That's when I saw it. A figure standing at the edge of the woods, just barely visible in the flashes of lightning. At first, I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. But then the lightning struck again, and this time, I saw him more clearly. A tall man, standing motionless in the downpour, facing my house. My stomach tightened. He wasn't moving, wasn't reacting to the wind or the rain. He was just standing there, staring. I told myself it had to be a trick of the light, maybe a tree or a shadow that just looked human. But then another bolt of lightning lit up the sky, and he was closer. I backed away from the window, my pulse hammering in my ears. I didn't have cell service out here, so calling for help wasn't an option. I grabbed the old landline phone, but of course, it was dead. I ran to the front door to make sure it was locked. That's when I heard it. The front porch creaking. My breath caught in my throat. The storm was so loud that I wouldn't have heard footsteps, but that sound, the slow, deliberate creak of old wooden planks, was unmistakable. I held my breath, gripping my flashlight like a weapon, and then a knock. Soft at first, then again, louder. 3 hard knocks on the wooden door. I couldn't move. My body was frozen in place. Then whoever was outside dropped the doorknob. I backed away slowly, heart pounding in my chest. I ran to the kitchen, grabbing the biggest knife I could find, then ducked into the laundry room, where I could still see the front door. For the next 5 minutes, I stood there in absolute terror, gripping the knife, waiting for the inevitable sound of breaking glass or forced entry, but it never came. I don't know how long I stood there before I finally gathered the courage to check. I peeked out the window. He was gone. I didn't sleep at all that night. The storm eventually passed, but I didn't feel the same until the sun came up. When I finally dared to open the front door the next morning, I felt my blood run cold. There were footprints, fresh, muddy footprints on the porch, leading to the door, but none leading away.